I think we're live.
Oh.
We're still figuring this countdown thing out. Go ahead, Edward.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of My Favorite Conservative. I am Edward.
And I am Andrea, but I am not conservative,
You're not?
but I'm not, no.
Okay.
But he is my favorite conservative.
Thank you.
Today, we're going to revisit the Republican debate that was held last Wednesday. We think it's important to discuss because I'm going to say when, something happens to Donald Trump and he can't run, the Republicans really need to have a plan B.
Yeah, I do think I heard some audible sighs out there from the audience when you said we're going to revisit the Republican debate because it didn't go real well, did it?
No, but it was held in the beautiful Ronald Reagan Library in Simi Valley, California. I think that actually might have been the highlight, was the library itself. It's just gorgeous. Edward, tell us who was on that debate stage. Who are the candidates?
Lots of governors.
Lots of governors.
And we start with the Great White North of North Dakota. Governor Doug Burgum.
You made him a doctor?
Could be. You never know.
Okay. Who else?
Then we go with the former governor of New Jersey, Christie.
Right.
We have the former United Nations ambassador for the United States and former South Carolina governor, Nikki Haley.
Yep.
Almost went Christie known there. We have the current governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis.
Your home state.
Indeed.
Okay.
Yes. We have businessman Vivek, rhymes with cake, Ramaswamy.
I know, you're saying the cake part, so I'll remember. Continue.
Yes,
who else?
That's we have the current senator from South Carolina, Tim Scott, and we have a former vice president and former governor of the state of Indiana, Mike Pence.
Lots of governors.
A lot of governors, yeah.
A lot of governors.
That's very traditional, though, for presidential.
It is.
Timber, yes.
Absolutely. So the moderators were Dana Perino from Fox News, Stuart Varney from Fox Business News, who could not remember the last moderator's name, Ilya Calderon, and I'm not going to try to roll the R, from Univision. Let's talk about the moderators first. Now, I know you have a word for it. You call it what?
It was a dumpster fire.
And see, I personally, because I have a potty mouth, I call it a shit show.
Yeah.
It was from the very beginning. They were talking, the moderators were talking over each other.
Yeah, it was a horrible intro. They were talking over each other on the intro. Like, hey, let's set an example for the candidates.
Yeah, you're right. And it was also very difficult to understand Calderon from Univision.
Yeah, I know she's, I think, been in this country for like 20 years, but my goodness. Yeah, watching the candidates, when she started to ask a question, they all leaned forward.
I know, right? They did.
And their eyes squinted, thinking they're all like constipated, didn't they?
Some of them.
But it was difficult to hear. It really was.
It was odd. It was odd because she got the majority of the questions after about the half-hour mark.
Yeah.
It seemed like that way. Yeah. And so why partner with Univision?
I've been asking myself that for the rest of the remainder of the week here. Univision is no friend to Republicans. Not at all. I mean, if you remember, I can't remember what was his name. Jorge Ramos, I think was his name.
Okay.
He used to come after Donald Trump in these press briefings with these ridiculous questions, and Trump actually had him thrown out of a couple of them. So why? And the questions that they asked were so slanted. They were all about
that she asked.
Specifically.
That
Univision person asked.
Yes.
They were about Dreamers and DACA and, trying to condemn the GOP policies on the border. And
her questions bordered on speeches, which in a court of law would not be illegal. You know what I mean? It was kind of like an attorney where the judge says, stop, you're testifying. And that's how it was. And she also went after, was it Ron DeSantis?
Yeah. With the fake story about that slavery taught slaves skills that they could use later in life. And it was been totally debunked. And why they would let that into a debate, since it's been completely debunked, I have no idea why.
Yeah, I don't either.
Not a good start for any of them.
It was not. Now, we are not going to go in chronological order of the debate.
Okay.
We are going to instead talk about each candidate. So speaking of Ron DeSantis, let's start with him. What was really interesting for me, and you like him, let's be very...
I do. Yeah. Let's be upfront here. Besides Donald Trump, I think Ron DeSantis would be the next best choice for sure.
I'm on the fence. But what was interesting was he's second in the polls after Trump, who was not there. So he is center stage. And we clocked 15 minutes. I know some other pundits, if you will, said 13 minutes, and one said 16, but we clocked it at 15 minutes before the leading candidate who was present received even one question.
Yeah, I think
what was that about?
Doug Burgum had 5 minutes of screen time. He's the human Muppet on stage there.
Okay, don't pick on him just yet.
Got that look. I don't know what
Okay,
like,
we were not talking about him yet.
But he had 5 minutes of screen time before DeSantis even got a question. And Burgum's at like 2%. DeSantis is well into the double digits. So, yeah, unbelievable how they let that occur.
Yeah, I do think one of his standout moments. He didn't have a lot, in my opinion, but when he talked about crime. That we need to get back to the blue. And I wrote down the quote because I thought it was great. Law and order over riot and disorder. I thought that was excellent. That's a little foreshadowing to our week in woke. I thought that was one of his strongest moments. He also did set the record straight about Blacks gaining skills as slaves and all of that with the Univision Miss Calderon moderator. What else do you think he did well?
His answers on pro-life were strong for if you are a true pro-lifer. That in Florida, I believe they have a 6-week heartbeat bill or law there. I think
it's 5 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Regardless of it, but it's a heartbeat bill. So if you can detect a heartbeat, you
yeah,
shouldn't be able to get an abortion. He stands by it. So he's fully behind.
He went even further than that. I mean, he said, I think they asked him because they did talk about abortion. And I am pro-choice. But he made a very strong statement about it. He said, I reject that pro-lifers are to blame for Republican defeats in all these different states.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was a very strong stance to take as well.
Well, but he also used that example of his victory that I came out with these incredibly tight restrictions on abortion and I annihilated my competition in Florida.
Yeah. So, and I don't agree with Ron DeSantis on this issue at all, but
can't wait for that show. That'd be fireworks here, folks.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm pro-choice, but I'm also a moderate when I say pro-choice. So, he also did really well in foreign policy.
Yeah, he did. He went after China really well. That we need to decouple. From China. We really have to, and Vivek touched on that also. We'll get into him in a bit, but that we cannot continue to send manufacturing there. He actually brought up the Confucius institutes in the colleges that are here in the United States, which are basically Chinese indoctrination centers that they seem to want to funnel spies through and whatnot. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, there's no way those should be on our soil. So yeah, really strong on that, really strong. He doesn't have a lot of foreign policy experience, obviously being a governor, but he seems like he's got a pretty good head on his shoulders in terms of what he's promoting.
What I would like to see more of, if the DeSantis camp is watching this, and they really should listen to me because we could get into it another time, but I helped get our mayor here in Birmingham elected. Yeah, I did. Different advice, but I did. So if the DeSantis camp is listening, what I thought was interesting is we only watched maybe 5 or 10 minutes of the post show. Yeah. And when he sat down with Hannity, he was relaxed. And you finally saw that he has a personality. And Trump has a personality that's bigger than any room. And that's who you're competing against right now. You're not competing against the Democrats yet. You're trying to win this primary. And DeSantis on a debate stage doesn't seem like he's capable of just relaxing and having a good time.
Yeah. And I also think the problem, we live in such a superficial world.
We do.
And especially it's a visual world. Yes. He does not have the greatest smile. He does not have a Barack Obama 1,000-watt smile.
Or even a Vivek smile.
Yeah, Vivek's got the same thing, but it's like he's trying to force it a little bit. He needs to just tone it down, be who he
I'm
is.
gonna try to do it. It was kind of like a.
It's that kind of.
But he doesn't show teeth.
Well, he tries to, and that's the
Yeah.
problem. If you don't have, and
People listening are like, "What are you doing right now?"
Yeah, but if you don't have the face structure where you have a natural smile, some people you just smile when they talk.
But when he was not debating and just having a
Yeah.
conversation, his natural smile came through.
I watched him on Maria Bartiromo this morning, just earlier today, and he was so relaxed. And
Yeah,
you know,
you don't have to have this megawatt smile, but you do need to seem comfortable.
Yeah.
And he doesn't seem comfortable. And I think that's why his campaign's having trouble right now, and why he's going down in the polls instead of up. Yes. Anything else about DeSantis, your favorite candidate? You want to add?
No, I think we got him pretty well there.
All right, let's go to the youngest man on the stage who is behind DeSantis in the polls. Vivek, as in cake. I remember Ramaswamy. I am convinced. Well, first of all, the first debate, he was very, very aggressive. And I think he got some feedback that he should pull back. And this time, to me, he came across as the Indian Ronald Reagan. He was inspirational. He was positive. He was uplifting. And even when he was attacked, he handled it with grace. I thought he had some very strong messages. Don't you agree?
Yeah. On your first part, he decided to pull it back just a hair, which was really nice. And he even, if you remember, brought it up himself that
he did.
Nobody wants the know-it-all guy. Maybe I'm too much of a know-it-all, whatever he said, something like that. But he demurred to a couple of other people that were attacking him and just let them attack. And
well, he did and he didn't, but let's hold off on that because one of the best lines of the whole debate was with him and another person. So I thought he was very strong on closing the border and building the wall. But what I liked, what he did best that I don't remember anyone else doing, was he really connected closing the border with the crisis that we have in this country with fentanyl. He connected the immigration issues with fentanyl and also how fentanyl is a mental health epidemic. And I thought that was smart.
Yeah, it really is. And all the other candidates need to get on board with this, that it's not just people coming across.
That's right.
But the
drugs,
tragedy, the fentanyl that's coming through.
Yeah.
We talked about this the other day when it got to me, what are we losing? Like 70,000 people, Americans, a year to fentanyl. And we're so concerned about Ukraine. And I looked up the numbers on how many people have actually died in the Ukrainian war. And estimates vary wildly, but it was between 20 and 50,000 in a little over 2.5 years. I guess we've been in this now.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're losing 70,000 people a year. So I love that Vivek brought this up, and it needs to be pounded home,
Yeah, he also had a gotcha question about transgenderism.
Yeah.
And I love how he handled it. Why don't you share with everyone?
Yeah, that was great. He said flat out, this is a mental health crisis. It is a mental health issue. It is gender dysphoria. And until we start to use those words in our everyday parlance with this, we're not going to move forward on this. Because if we sit here and pussyfoot around, and Vivek went right at it and said, we need to call it what it is, and they need to get help. So good for him.
Yeah.
Good for him on that. Yeah.
So one of the best moments of this entire night, which was a little bit of a sleeper at times, was he talked about how important it was for everyone to reach the next generation with TikTok. And I don't disagree with him, although we don't have TikTok accounts and for many reasons. And Nikki Haley really had an issue with him, like such an issue. And when he talked about TikTok, and I think she considers herself really strong on foreign policy. We will get to her next. But she said, and I'm sure there are memes out there, every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber. And it was just so funny. But he handled it with such grace. He just smiled. He put his hand up, kind of like talk to the hand. He didn't say that, but he just, and he did not engage with her at all. And all it did was make her look even angrier.
Yeah, it wasn't, it was a zinger that I think that she'd been waiting to throw at him, but I don't think.
Really? I felt like it was kind of off the cuff because she was so irritated by him. Like she was worked up.
Could be, but I have a problem with him promoting or being on TikTok, there's so many parts of our government that are decon from TikTok because it is a Chinese company.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
yes, they are gathering information from us on everything that we do. So yeah, he needs to address that.
Yes. Now,
future.
they got into another little tiff about Ukraine. He was very clear that Ukraine is a corrupt country. And Nikki Haley said that he didn't have any foreign policy experience, which is fair. And again, he dismissed her very well. He didn't engage. But he did have a zinger for this. And I want you to say it next with how he responded about Nikki Haley.
Yeah, well, he said she'll have us in a hot war in 18 months.
And he's right.
Yeah, I happen to agree with him also.
He's right. Yeah.
If you have foreign policy experience, that's good. But if you're on the wrong side of what the policy should be, not so good.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought you handled that very well. Again, whether you agree with his stance or not. He went a little rogue on a question about energy and then got into the Fed. I mean, it was a little odd. And I don't think he knew how to handle the question about energy. So he talked about the Fed and how we need zero-based budgeting like we do in business. Although I would argue that a lot of businesses don't even do that. But I think that was his only sort of misstep of the night.
Yeah, to me, what that looked like was he was asked a question and he decided, I don't care what the question is, I'm going to go on my talking points and I'm going to get all of my things out that I want to get out.
But they all do that.
Yeah, but
when they do well.
But when you're asked a certain question, it's courteous to actually answer it.
All right. Anything else about Vivek before you move on?
Rhymes with cake? No.
All right. We've already talked a little bit about Nikki Haley.
Nice.
One of the things that bothered me was, why are you laughing, sir? Why are you laughing?
Go ahead.
So Dana Perino interrupted Nikki Haley right away. But she almost never interrupted any of the men until much later when she did interrupt Doug Burgum and threatened to turn off his mic.
But as a woman, are you allowed to interrupt a woman? See, that's...
Well, first of all, we already said the moderators were, whether you want to call it, as Edward said, dumpster fire, I said shit show. The moderators did not moderate, but I couldn't believe that Dana Perino had no problem cutting off Nikki Haley and did not cut off anybody else really until toward the end. But let's talk about her strong points. Oh, come on.
Okay.
Come on.
Yeah, I mean, she surprisingly has gotten a bump in the polls with her performance again.
She had a strong answer on healthcare. I didn't write down the specifics, but I do remember her having a very strong answer about healthcare. What else?
Well, when she, went off on I believe education, she went the typical anti-DEI, anti-CRT.
Yeah.
That sort of thing.
That felt very general to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
boilerplate, if you will.
Yeah. I thought she did do a good job of tying energy independence to national security.
Yeah. That is huge. And it's, something every one of the candidates up there, I'm sure, supports. But we need to say it over and over and over that the key to getting out of this mess that we're in is energy. Whether it's
we have it, people.
We have it in
here.
Abundance. Yes. Whether it's national security, whether it's inflation, self-sufficiency.
I gotta say it. I didn't vote for Trump. I didn't vote in the last election. I think we covered this in season 1. But he made us energy independent. Yeah. He did. Yeah, absolutely. He did. So, so I thought that was a good for her. I think she's really vying for the Veep spot. But all right, are you ready to go on to the next one?
Oh, Senator Tim Scott, also from South Carolina.
Yes, one of the only non-governors on the stage. And I felt like he was trying too hard to be the Republican Obama. Yeah. He's a lot about hope and change, but he lacks the charisma that Obama has, however you feel about Obama's politics. And the other thing about Tim Scott that reminded me a little bit of DeSantis is DeSantis okay. is his smile felt very forced until actually there was one moment during the debate where he laughed and then he had his natural smile and it was great. But again, he just looks very stiff, and it was very interesting to watch. Here he is, the current senator, one of the current senators of South Carolina, go up against the former governor of South Carolina and they just went at each other.
They had a cat and dog fight there,
They
didn't
did.
they?
They were just screaming over other people because they weren't standing next to each other.
No, and I felt bad for the people in the middle.
I know. It was so strange. And am I wrong that he said something about, well, you appointed me or something? I thought he said something. It was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you have to share with everyone what they were screaming about. Like what he brought up. It was the dumbest point.
It was one of those pressing issues that he brought up when I believe when she was named UN ambassador,
Right.
she moved into the residence and there were, what was it, $50,000 drapes or something like that.
Yes.
And that was her fault.
They were already there when she got there.
Whoever did Tim Scott's prep on that, it's just so stupid.
It was really dumb, and they just went at it. And I do think this was an opportunity that sometimes you want to just let the candidates go at each other, but I think this was an opportunity because these $50,000 drapes, curtains, whatever you want to call them, had nothing to do with anything.
Yeah. As kind of paraphrasing Nikki Haley, after listening to that exchange, I felt a lot dumber.
I did too. Yeah, absolutely.
Just looking at each other like,
we were like,
where are we going with
why?
this? Yeah.
So I think the moderators at that point could have just cut both of them off. And so let's get back on topic because it was distracting.
Yeah.
It was
I will say with your talk comments about Tim Scott trying to be like Obama, you can hear it in his delivery now. It's a little more pastor-like, if you will, preacher-like, if you will. He pauses a little bit more, and
he's a likable guy.
He is. It's when you ask about Tim Scott, first thing you hear, he's got a great story. Raised from poverty and all that other stuff. And, well, that's great, but I'm not a huge Tim Scott fan. I think he's been a reliable conservative vote, thank goodness. But we'll see. I just need to see a lot more from him to get behind him.
All right. And then there's Governor Christie. And so Edward and I had more fun listening to him, I think, than anyone else, just because of the absurd things he said. So one of the things he said was, we need a president like I was as a governor. And he really stresses, of course, that he was a conservative governor in a very blue state of New Jersey. Fair enough. But my first response was, so we need a president who eats like a cow?
You looked at me and I just said, whoa, we're going to have to increase the White House budget for food if he becomes president. His nickname is Christie Cream. Christie. So
Krispy Kreme.
Krispy Kreme.
Oh, so you say Krispy Kreme. Krispy Kreme. Great donuts. And I will say, you and I talked about it. As soon as we saw him, he doesn't look healthy. And we're not talking about just the weight, like his face. Like he's drinking. I don't know. He just didn't.
He looks like Taft, right? President
He's
Taft.
getting there. He is. He was very strong, however, on abortion. He gave specific examples, moderate examples, also about leaving it to the states. But again, finding that middle ground of now not outlawing abortion completely, but not allowing it right up to the moment of birth, which I don't believe in either. I thought one of his weaker moments was when he was asked about AI, and he didn't have really an answer at all. It was almost like he didn't even know what they were talking about.
Yeah. Or he hasn't studied the issue. It didn't seem like, but with Christie, let me say this. He's not running to be president of the United States. He's running to keep Donald Trump from being president of the United States. That's his entire goal, is to make sure Trump doesn't get elected and try to inflict as much damage. That's goal number one. Goal number two is a contract with ABC, whomever, whatever.
He's already working the networks. He's already,
But you've got, as you always run for president, it raises your profile and people pay money for that. So
we would be remiss to say that he was really counting on, I think, Attorney General with Trump.
Yeah.
He was a huge fan of Trump, backed Trump very early. And when Trump just threw him to the trash.
Yeah, I think it goes a little deeper than that, though, because when Trump brought him on board during a transition, Christie actually had a lot of sway in helping him name who was going to fill what position in the government. And we saw how that turned out with a lot of crappy people put in positions that whether he pulled one over on Trump or whatever. But, obviously the reason that Christie wasn't going to get attorney general is because he sent Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, his father, to prison for embezzlement or whatever it was, fraud, in New Jersey. So he had no shot. He should have, he's a big boy. He should have realized that from the beginning.
Yeah, I guess he didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, well. Okay. And I don't think he'll be around much longer. As a person, yes. As a candidate, no. Guys, really,
yes,
yeah.
Yes, okay.
All right. So let's talk about Vice President and former governor of Indiana, Mike Pence. I have 4 words for you, Mr. Pence. You are not funny. Okay. We are not even going to dignify this podcast, this show, with the joke that you attempted to tell. And the laugh that you got was a laugh of pity.
Nervousness, like, oh God, did he just go there?
Yeah, being
sleeping
uncomfortable.
With a teacher for 35
I
years.
said we weren't gonna.
I had to.
No, we don't.
Just the
It
visual.
was so bad. It was so
sorry, Mike.
bad. Yeah, and then and he's just very. You had a phrase for him. You had a thing for Mike Pence.
Well,
I told you to write this down. You had a great.
Yeah. But when Pence talks,
yes, do it.
He tries to make whatever he says sound like the most important thing in the world.
Give us an example.
You
gotta give us an example.
Like, well, this morning I decided to have cornflakes for my first and most important meal of the day.
That's right. That's his cadence.
And it's like, Mike, you're a nice guy. You're
absolutely
extremely moral, well positioned to help lead whatever in terms of trying to get our moral compass back. But my goodness.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike.
Yeah, not a good night for him across the board. And when he was asked about Obamacare, he completely stalled, which surprised me. He should have been prepared for that. And all of a sudden, he started talking about mass shootings with no real point.
Yeah, Dana Perino asked him about why didn't you, get rid of Obamacare when you had the chance, when you were vice president, when you had control of the House and the Senate.
Oh, that's right. That's exactly what,
And he went off on mass shootings
it was odd.
And wanting them to make it a federal crime, which I'm completely against. If you start that, you open a door into, gee, what other crimes are we going to now make federal crimes? Murder's murder. You're whatever.
Yeah.
Right? You can't justify that. But yeah, and he got done with his answer, which went on forever. And Dana Perino, said, well, the question was about Obamacare.
She did, yeah.
But then it was like, oh crap, we're out of time. We got to go on to the next question.
Which he was counting on.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So his strategy worked, but didn't really help us out understanding.
No.
So, which I think it's a really tough question for him to answer.
But he should have been prepared. But they both,
Well, his answer should have been very easily, well, we had Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan running the House and the Senate. That's why. Next question.
Oh, well, I think there still would have been pushback on that. But all right, last but not least, the man who tore his ACL, right? No, not his ACL, his Achilles. His Achilles.
Yeah, Achilles before the first debate.
The day before the first debate, was still on that stage. He was back. Doug Burgum, I had to look up how to say that name. He bragged about his business acumen.
Which he should. This is a guy, he built $1 billion company in North Dakota, a software company, not Silicon Valley, not Manhattan, not Boston.
And not energy.
Yeah. And not energy or cattle or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So, kudos to Doug.
Yeah. And we did mention earlier, Dana Perino threatened to cut off his mic, but she never did.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, they should be able to do that. There should be like a touch of a button where the moderator can cut off your mic, but I'm getting off point. He did have some really nice points.
Yeah. I mean, when he went over his success in North Dakota, great energy policy, that sort of thing, because they understand that they've got oil and whatnot up there.
Right.
But to me, it's a little different when he's doing, saying how great he's doing in North Dakota versus how Ron DeSantis is doing in Florida. North Dakota's got what, 3/4 people total.
Yeah, you looked it up.
Yeah, it's not.
I think it's half.
We're not talking a metropolitan mecca, if you will. And is it easier to get things done in a small state? Probably.
Yeah, and he had some nice points about gun law. Yeah. I do remember that. So
certainly pro Second Amendment for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Anything else about the candidates before we go for our last segment?
God, Is there? Did they even announce another debate?
Oh yeah, there's
Did
another
they?
one.
Oh,
Yep,
God.
I think in November. Yeah,
Oh,
I
Lord.
forget where it is.
Well, whoever's going to do it, I'm sure it'll be Fox because it's not going to go to NBC or CNN or anything.
They need moderators who can moderate. That's all I got to say.
And just control the situation. And we implore for the candidates to show some decorum, and
stop
just
yelling at each other.
Yeah, abide by your 5 minutes or your 2 minutes or whatever it is, or your minute. It doesn't matter. I think they should give them a little bit longer to answer something, but then that's it. You're cut off, and we.
I think they should just cut off the mics because they are going to talk as long as they possibly can on subjects they're really comfortable about.
Sure.
And on the subjects they're not, they're just going to talk about whatever they want to talk about, as we've already said. And until their mics actually get cut and they realize that it's kind of like children, until you realize the threat is real and it's going to happen and you follow through, you're not going to pay attention. Megyn Kelly had a great point. It's that moderating a presidential debate like this was like hurting toddlers. And I agree. But the problem is they weren't doing that.
Yeah, no, that was, and I watched some of the post-debate stuff, and Fox tried to spin it as historic, and it was a historic shit show. So potty mouth here.
He just said
you won't hear that often.
No, you won't. I'm the one that cusses. Okay. All right. So now it's time for This Week in Woke.
Oh, yes.
What do you have for us? And by the way, like I never know ahead of time what he's bringing to the table on this, so I'm always a little surprised. So what did you decide to talk about this week?
We're going to go to the city of brotherly love. Yeah, Philadelphia.
Oh, a Philadelphian that I met once in an airport is the person who told me, a native Philadelphian who told me that Philadelphia was known as Philadelphia. And I thought he was joking, but he's like, no, really it is.
Yeah, fortunately, this doesn't have to do with anybody getting killed. But
it's still pretty bad.
Yeah, the headline is Philly social media influencer Meatball arrested for instigating looting for free iPhones. A social media influencer with 200,000 followers on Instagram was arrested by police during the riots and looting early last Tuesday morning.
Okay.
Her name is Dejia Blackwell. I love it. A 21-year-old Instagram influencer. Now, anybody over the age of like 40, when they hear that term, eyes roll. We just snicker.
Especially you. But yes.
So she was arrested for basically leading a caravan of looters from store to store because she was live streaming this.
Live streaming her crime.
Yeah, the crime while she's out front yelling, "People must eat. There's free iPhones." So they're tearing up these stores, and
they're just taking
one
everything.
was like an insurance office or something.
Oh.
I mean, what are you, for crying out loud? Yeah. So I think the moral to the story is, if you're going to commit a crime, don't do it live on.
Yeah, don't live stream your crime.
Because the police actually came and arrested her during her live crime spree.
Oh, that's good.
It wasn't afterward. Yeah.
Well, that's good. At least that happened.
The great thing, though, the positive thing about this that I heard was they interviewed her grandmother. The media did.
Oh, okay.
And grandma did not take kindly to Meatball.
Good.
Out there. She said she would not raise like this. And, this is not the way my granddaughter should act. So good for her.
Whenever I hear Meatball, I just think of I did that. What was that comedy series in or movies in the 80s? There was a character called Meatball.
Oh, well, no, there was a movie with.
Was it called Meatballs?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, that was what's his name? Yeah.
Yeah. What's his name? I don't know. Someone will tell us. I hope.
Bill Murray.
Bill Murray. Really? It was a camp thing, right? Like summer camp. Yeah. That's what I think of.
Really horrible movie.
So. Well,
moving along.
Well, it wasn't a great.
That's our movie review portion of my favorite.
That's right. All right. Anything else to This Week in Woke or the candidates or anything else you'd like to say, Mr. Pro Ron DeSantis?
Well, that's true. No, just please do better next time, everybody. Please, the American people deserve to hear the candidates and to have it done in a respectful way. So,
I agree. And maybe Vivek, take your hair down a notch.
Yeah, that's true. We didn't talk about Vivek.
His hair is a little high.
Hairdo. Yeah. Lop a couple inches off of that bad boy. You'll be in good shape. It's distracting.
It was,
Yes.
well, yeah. Hey, I wish I had the hair like that. I wish I had that kind of hair. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please join us next week live, and we will figure out this whole countdown live thing. I promise we're going to do a test right after this. Please join us next week live on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're listening to the podcast, which always drops on the following Monday, so tomorrow, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast wherever you're listening right now, and support our show by joining our locals community, which is coming soon, but you can still support the show in other ways on apps like Buy Me a Coffee. And learn more and follow us on all socials at myfavoriteconservative.show. That's it.
Good show. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.